commissioners wrote, "We witnessed the climate of fear for ourselves when we visited the Turks and Caicos Islands. Alarmingly for British overseas territory, many individuals expressed great concern about being seen to be talking to British parliamentarians, and some individuals declined to meet us altogether for this reason. We wish to also draw to the public's attention that during a meeting of the committee in March 2008, one of the committee members that visited the Turks and Caicos, Mr. Pope, in his statement said, and I quote, "When we hold any inquiry, the committee receives lots of written evidence. Typically, the senders of a handful of that evidence request confidentiality, but for the TCI, a large number of people did. That is of real concern. I am finding it hard to put that in context, but the only other place I have been where people have insisted on such confidentiality was the People's Republic of China. I am shocked that people are doing that in a country that has a Union Jack on its flag." The committee's report also spoke to the destruction of protected areas and the impact on tourism. In paragraph 160, the report says, "The RSPB told us that protected areas had been degazetted to allow for built development. Our attention was also drawn to a recent article in the National Geographic magazine, which listed the Turks and Caicos Islands as joint second to last in a ranking of 111 islands as tourist destinations, suggesting that overdevelopment in TCI was already beginning to affect its reputation as a high-end tourist destination." The committee's report also spoke to freedom of speech in the Turks and Caicos Islands. It spoke to people that were refused entry to the Turks and Caicos Islands because of severing ties with the relatives of the premier. The committee took great exception to the fact that the Turks and Caicos Islands Sun misquoted Susan Dixon, legal counsel at FCO, as having told them the governor does not have authority to call a commission of inquiry without consulting the cabinet or premier, when she in fact told them that he did have such discretion. The committee's conclusions were varied, but the conclusions as it relates to the Turks and Caicos Islands were as follows. They concluded, and I quote, "We recommend the FCO should strongly encourage all overseas territories which have not yet done so to introduce freedom of information legislation. As we conclude that the government has acted, this is the UK government, has acted decisively in some overseas territories. For example, in the investigation and prosecution that took place in Pitcairn Islands. However, in other cases, which should cause grave concern, in particular allegations of corruption on Turks and Caicos Islands, its approach has been too hands-off. The government must take its oversight responsibility for the overseas territories more seriously, consulting across all overseas territories more on hand while demonstrating a greater willingness to step in and use reserve powers when necessary or the other." The Commission also concluded, says, "We also conclude that the choice of governor for a territory and the level of training and support that are given are crucial. We welcome the recent upgrade of the governor's post in the Turks and Caicos Islands. We recommend that the FCO should give consideration to opening up appointments of governors more frequently to candidates outside of the diplomatic service." And it says, finally, the committee concludes that it is deplorable and totally unacceptable for any individual who has assisted the committee with its inquiry to be subjected to threats, intimidation, or personal sanction or violence in any form. If the committee is informed of any such retaliation measures being taken against any person who have submitted formal or informal evidence to this inquiry, it will take all appropriate steps within its powers. In response to the committee's report, and with the serious comments and serious statements that were made by the committee, last night, the Premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands, Mr. Michael Mizek, sought, rather than address the concerns outlined by the committee, but sought to deflect attention away from those issues and to engage in an all-out attack on me and on the People's Democratic Movement, rather than address the allegations facing him and the dire need for a commission of inquiry to unearth the facts. We simply say, he who does no evil fears no evil. Therefore, a commission of inquiry simply provides an opportunity for investigators to either prove or dispel any rumors. So he who does no evil fears no evil. There have been comments of a commission of inquiry dating back to previous administrations. On more than one occasion, the PDM response to that has simply been to bring it on. In our mind, we have stood on the side of what is right and fair and just, irrespective of who has done wrong. We have called for a commission of inquiry if it has to go back to 76 or 75 or beyond. We have no hesitation in lending our full support to any commission of inquiry. The People's Democratic Movement has always governed this country with the highest level of integrity, and we have nothing to fear. We have nothing to hide. Anyone that has done anything inappropriate must and ought to be held accountable. It is our duty to do so as patriots of this Turks and Caicos Islands. Our response to the allegations made by the Premier is simple, and we will not belabor the point, but our quest is not a quest for power, but a quest for good governance. Our quest is not a quest for money, but morality, not enrichment, but empowerment of all the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands. We stand by our ideals of equality and justice for all the people of the country, above the enrichment for a few and alienation of those that seek to speak their minds. The people of our country also have a role to play. The committee has done its work, has done its investigation, it has submitted its report, and the process continues. We ought not, as a